Welcome back to HOA Karma Files. She wanted a scapegoat and I brought a timeline. I do not need your story. That is what Tracy Benson yelled at my porch at 7:15 on a Thursday evening in April, standing under my doorbell camera with a plastic badge clipped to her trench coat and a laminated policy sheet swinging from her lanyard. She had a timeline and I was on it, she said. And she loved repeating my name like it was evidence. I am a field service engineer, so I spend half my life in server rooms and the other half dodging nonsense like this. But Tracy was the board secretary for Sunset Ridge Community Association in San Jose, California, and she had decided I was a thief. A neighbor posted that afternoon that packages were missing from the mailbox cluster near the cul-de-sac, and Tracy pointed at me in the comments. No names, but enough detail that everyone knew. Now she was at my door, and she was not asking questions. I am documenting everything, she said, tapping the badge. That was her catchphrase, and she said it every time she wanted you to know she had power. The badge was cheap plastic, the kind you get from an office supply store, but she treated it like a federal shield. You were seen, she continued, holding the envelope. The charity raffle envelope. It was marked delivered, and it is gone, and your porch camera points right at the mailbox cluster, so let us see the footage. I told her I did not have footage of the mailbox cluster because my camera points at my own porch, not the street. She smiled like I had just lied. Then you will not mind if I forward this to the police, she said. I have a witness who saw you walk away from the cluster with something in your hands yesterday at 4:30. That was a lie. I was in Fremont yesterday at 4:30, pulling a failed drive array out of a rack, and I had the work order to prove it, but Tracy was already turning away. I am giving you until tomorrow morning to return it, she said over her shoulder. After that, we can tow first and explain later. She walked back to her car, a silver SUV parked at the curb, and I closed the door before I said something I would regret. The charity raffle was for a local food bank, a sealed envelope with cash contributions from about a dozen households, and it had been handed off to the HOA for delivery to the organizer. Tracy was supposed to drop it off on Tuesday. Now it was missing, and somehow I was the prime suspect because I lived 2 doors down from the cluster and my camera existed. I pulled up my phone and checked the Ring app. My camera had been running all week, but the angle was garbage for the cluster, just like I said. All I had was my own porch, my driveway, and a sliver of the sidewalk. I scrolled back to Wednesday at 4:30 anyway, just to see. Nothing. No one walked past except a jogger in a yellow jacket who did not stop. I sent the clip to my own email as a backup and checked the community portal. Sunset Ridge ran everything through a third-party management site where you could pay dues, submit maintenance requests, and view violation notices. I logged in and found 3 new items. The first was a post from Tracy in the main feed. Community alert, theft investigation underway. The second was a violation notice in my account. Failure to cooperate with board investigation, penalty pending. The third was a comment thread under the alert where Tracy had written, "We have identified a person of interest and are working with local authorities to recover the stolen funds. Do not approach this individual." Someone replied asking who it was, and Tracy said, "I cannot name them publicly yet, but they live in the Northwest section and have a history of evasive behavior." I lived in the Northwest section. No one else did except 2 retirees and a family with 3 kids under 10. I texted my neighbor Luis, who lived across the street and worked from home most days. He replied in about 10 seconds, saw the post. "That is insane. You were not even here Wednesday. I know because I borrowed your drill Tuesday night and you said you had an early Fremont run." I asked if he would be willing to say that on the record if it came to it. He said, "Absolutely, but be careful." Tracy has been on a tear lately. She tried to find me last month because my trash can was still out at 9 in the morning on pickup day. The rule says noon. I thanked him and opened a new browser tab to look up the vendor Tracy mentioned in her threat. Sunset Ridge used a towing company called Allied Metro for parking enforcement, and according to the contract posted in the HOA documents section, they were only authorized to tow for expired tags, abandoned vehicles, or fire lane violations. Nothing about theft investigations. I screenshotted the contract and saved it to a folder I titled Evidence. A new email came in from the management company, CC'd to Tracy and the rest of the board. Subject: Incident report required, charity envelope. The body was short, per board request. All residents with cameras facing common areas are required to submit footage from April 15th through 17th by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Failure to comply may result in restricted portal access and escalated enforcement action. I read it twice. April 15th was 2 days ago. April 17th was tomorrow. They were asking for 3 days of footage with less than 12 hours notice, and the threat was portal lockout, which meant I would not be able to pay dues, submit requests, or even see violation notices. I checked the timestamp on the email. It went out at 7:40, about 20 minutes after Tracy left my porch. She must have sent it from her car. I called the management office and got voicemail. The recording said they were closed until 8 a.m. and to use the portal for urgent issues. I hung up and pulled up the HOA governing documents. There was a section on investigations that said the board could request cooperation from residents, but it also said requests had to be reasonable and provide adequate notice, which was defined as 72 hours unless there was an immediate safety risk. Theft of a charity envelope was not an immediate safety risk. I screenshotted that section too and added it to the folder. Then I went back to the portal and downloaded every email, post, and comment Tracy had made in the last month. If she was going to document everything, so was I. Friday morning, I woke up to another email. This one was from Tracy directly, sent at 6 a.m. Subject: Final courtesy notice. The body said, "You have until 9 a.m. to provide the requested footage and written statement. If you do not comply, I will forward your account information to the San Jose Police Department and recommend a wellness check and property search. I am documenting everything. This is your last chance to do the right thing." I stared at the screen for a minute. A wellness check was code for getting the cops to knock on your door and ask if you were okay, and a property search required a warrant, which she did not have, and could not get based on a missing envelope and a hunch. But she was counting on me not knowing that, or not wanting the hassle. I forwarded the email to Luis and asked if he knew a lawyer. He sent back a name and a number, a guy named Rob Prasad, who did HOA disputes and lived 2 neighborhoods over. I called Rob at 7:30. He picked up on the second ring, and I gave him the short version. He listened without interrupting, then said, "Okay, first, do not send them anything yet. If they lock your portal access, that is retaliation, and we can file a complaint with the state. Second, do not talk to the police without me if they show up. Third, I need you to get me everything she has sent you, and everything the HOA has posted about this. I can have a letter drafted by noon." I asked what it would say. He said, "Cease and desist on the threats, formal records request for any evidence she claims to have, and a demand that they follow their own bylaws on notice and procedure. If she keeps pushing, we go to the management company and the state ombudsman. It will cost you about $500 for the letter and another $1,000 if we have to escalate, but it sounds like she is already violating about 4 different rules, so we have leverage." I told him to draft it and sent him the evidence folder. At 8:50, I uploaded my doorbell footage to the portal with a note that said, "Per your request, attached as footage from April 15th through 17th. As you can see, my camera does not have a clear view of the mailbox cluster and shows no evidence of the alleged activity. I also included a PDF of the work order from Wednesday, showing I was in Fremont at the time Tracy claimed I was at the cluster. Then I sat back and waited. At 9:15, Tracy replied in the portal comments, "Footage is inconclusive and does not exonerate the person of interest. We are moving forward with enforcement and police notification." At 9:30, the portal locked me out. I tried to log in and got an error message, account access restricted pending resolution of open investigation. Contact management office for assistance. I called the management office. A receptionist named Vanessa picked up, and I explained the situation. She put me on hold for 2 minutes, then came back and said, "I see the note here. It looks like the restriction was placed by the board secretary this morning. I can escalate it to the property manager, but she is in meetings until this afternoon. I can leave a message and have her call you." I asked if there was any way to get access back sooner. Vanessa said, "Not unless the board member who placed it removes it." I asked if that was normal. She paused. "Between you and me, no. Usually we handle restrictions, not the board. But Tracy has admin access because she does the newsletter and violation tracking, so technically she can do it. I thanked her and hung up. At 10:30, Luis texted me, "Tracy just posted in the main feed again. You need to see this." I pulled up the community page on my phone using the public view, which did not require login. The new post was titled, "Community Warning, Theft Suspect Identified." The text said, "After reviewing evidence and consulting with legal counsel, the board has identified a resident who is the primary suspect in the theft of the charity raffle envelope. This individual has refused to cooperate with the investigation and has provided footage that does not clear them. We are working with local law enforcement and the district attorney's office to pursue charges. In the meantime, all residents are advised to secure packages and avoid leaving valuables in common areas." The post had 15 comments already. Most were shocked reactions and questions about who it was. One person wrote, "Is it safe to walk around the neighborhood?" Another wrote, "Can we get extra security patrols?" Tracy replied to that one, "We are exploring options, but in the meantime, stay vigilant and report any suspicious activity." Rob called me at 11. "I just saw the post," he said. "That is defamation. She named you without naming you, and she is implying you committed a crime with zero evidence. I am adding that to the letter. It goes out in an hour." I asked what would happen next. He said, "Depends on how she reacts. If she backs off, great. If she doubles down, we file a formal complaint and possibly a lawsuit. Either way, you need to start gathering witnesses. Anyone who can confirm you were not at the cluster. Anyone who saw Tracy acting weird around the mailbox. Anything." I told him about Luis and the work order. He said, "Good start. Keep going." I spent the next 2 hours calling neighbors I knew. Most did not pick up. 2 said they had not seen anything. One, an older guy named Frank, who lived at the end of the cul-de-sac, said he saw Tracy near the cluster on Tuesday morning, which was the day before the envelope went missing. I asked what she was doing. He said, "I do not know. I was taking out my trash and I saw her standing there with a clipboard. I figured she was doing an inspection or something. She does that sometimes." I asked if he would be willing to tell that to the management company or the police. He hesitated. "I do not want to get involved," he said. "Tracy has a lot of pull with the board and I do not need her on my case." I understood, but I asked him to at least write it down in case it mattered later. He said he would think about it. At 1 p.m., a San Jose Police Department cruiser pulled up in front of my house. I watched through the window as a deputy got out and walked up to my porch. I opened the door before he knocked. He was young, maybe late 20s, and he had a tablet in his hand. "Are you the resident here?" he asked, and I said yes. He said, "I got a call from your HOA about a theft investigation. They said you might have information. I told him I was happy to cooperate, but I wanted to clarify that I was not a suspect. I was being falsely accused." He raised an eyebrow. "Okay," he said. "Let us start over. What is this about?" I gave him the rundown, the missing envelope, Tracy's accusation, the portal lockout, the public post. He took notes on the tablet and asked if I had any proof I was not involved. I showed him the work order and the doorbell footage. He watched the clip and nodded. "This does not show much," he said, "but it also does not show you taking anything. Do you know who reported the envelope missing?" I said Tracy did. He asked if I knew where the envelope was supposed to go. I said the food bank, but Tracy was the one handling the drop-off. He wrote that down. "Okay," he said. "Here is the situation. I cannot open an investigation based on an HOA board member's hunch. If they have actual evidence, they need to bring it to the station and file a report. If you want to file a counter report for harassment or defamation, you can do that too. I am going to write this up as a courtesy contact and close it unless something else comes in." He handed me a card with an incident number on it. "If the HOA keeps pressuring you, reference this number and let us know." I thanked him and he left. I texted Rob the incident number and he said, "Perfect. That is going in the letter." At 2:30, Rob emailed me a draft of the cease and desist. It was 3 pages and it was brutal. It cited the governing documents, the retaliation, the defamation, and the false police report. It demanded that Tracy retract the public posts, restore my portal access, and provide copies of any evidence she claimed to have. It gave her 72 hours to comply or face legal action. I approved it, and Rob sent it certified mail to Tracy's address and the management office. At 4 p.m., Tracy posted again. This time, it was in a private board chat that someone screenshotted and sent to Luis, who forwarded it to me. The screenshot showed Tracy writing, "The suspect is now using legal threats to intimidate the board and obstruct the investigation. This confirms his guilt. We need to move quickly before he destroys evidence. I recommend we schedule an emergency hearing and consider a restraining order to keep him away from common areas." Someone else in the chat, the treasurer, wrote back, "Are you sure we have enough to do that?" Tracy replied, "I have a witness and I have his own footage showing evasive behavior. That is enough." The treasurer said, "I think we should wait for the management company to weigh in." Tracy said, "We do not have time. I am calling Allied Metro to get his car flagged for tow if he parks in guest spaces." I forwarded the screenshot to Rob. He called me back in under a minute. "She is unhinged," he said. "This is retaliation, abuse of process, and possible fraud. I am adding it to the complaint, and I am going to contact the management company directly. Do not engage with her. Do not reply to anything. Let me handle it." I asked what would happen if she actually called the tow company. He said, "If they tow you without cause, that is conversion and we sue them too. But I do not think they will. Most tow companies do not want the liability. Just keep your car in your driveway for now and document everything." At 5 p.m., I got a call from Vanessa at the management office. She sounded stressed. "I just got off the phone with your attorney," she said. "I want you to know we are reviewing the restriction on your account and we are going to have a conversation with Tracy. What she is doing is not normal and it is not in line with our procedures." I asked if my access would be restored. She said, "I am working on it, but I need to get approval from the property manager and she is dealing with another emergency right now. I can tell you that we are not going to pursue any enforcement action against you based on what we have seen so far." I thanked her and asked if she could tell me anything about the witness Tracy kept mentioning. Vanessa hesitated. "I should not," she said, "but off the record, the witness is another board member, and when I asked for a written statement, they said they did not actually see you take anything. They just saw you near the cluster at some point this week." That is not the same thing Tracy has been saying. I asked which board member. Vanessa said she could not tell me, but I could probably guess. There were 5 people on the board: Tracy, the president, the treasurer, and 2 at-large members. I had never met the at-large members. I thanked Vanessa and hung up. 10 minutes later, Luis texted me, "Tracy is at the mailbox cluster right now with a rolling file cart. She is talking to people." I grabbed my phone and my keys and walked down the street. The cluster was a big metal box unit with about 30 compartments, set on a concrete pad near the corner of the cul-de-sac. Tracy was standing next to it with the file cart, which had a binder on top and a bunch of loose papers sticking out. 3 neighbors were standing around her, listening. I recognized one of them, a woman named Jenna, who lived in the townhouses on the north end. If you are loving this chaos, hit that like button and subscribe for more HOA drama where the bad guys get what they deserve. Tracy saw me coming, and her face lit up like she had been waiting for this. "Oh good," she said loudly. "The person of interest is here. Everyone, this is the individual I have been telling you about." She pulled a paper from the binder and held it up. "This is a printed portal audit log sheet," she said, waving it. "It shows every login and every action taken in the portal over the last 2 weeks. And guess whose account accessed the mailbox maintenance request section on the same day the envelope went missing?" She pointed at me. "His." Jenna frowned. "What does that mean?" she asked. Tracy said, "It means he was checking to see if anyone had reported the theft yet. He was covering his tracks." I stepped closer. "That is not what it means," I said. "I checked the maintenance section because I submitted a request about a broken sprinkler head last week. It is public record. You can look it up." Tracy smiled. "So you admit you were in the portal that day," she said. I said, "I am in the portal almost every day. So are you. That does not prove anything." She opened the binder and pulled out another sheet. This one had a highlighted section. "I also have a witness statement," she said, holding it up but not letting anyone else see it. A board member who saw you walking away from the cluster with an envelope in your hand on Tuesday afternoon. That is the day before the theft was reported, which means you had advance knowledge. I looked at Jenna and the others. That is a lie, I said. I was not here on Tuesday afternoon. I was working in Fremont and I have a time-stamped work order to prove it. Tracy snapped, work orders can be faked. I said, so can witness statements apparently, because whoever told you they saw me is either lying or mistaken. One of the other neighbors, a guy I did not know, said, this is getting pretty heated. Maybe we should let the management company sort it out. Tracy turned on him. The management company is not going to do anything, she said. They are slow and they do not care about our safety. That is why the board exists. We are the ones who have to protect this community, and if that means calling out a thief, then that is what I am going to do. She looked back at me. I am giving you one more chance, she said. Return the envelope and apologize, and we can settle this quietly. If you do not, I am forwarding everything to the district attorney and you will have a criminal record. Jenna looked uncomfortable. Tracy, she said, I do not think you can just threaten people like that. Tracy spun toward her. I am not threatening anyone, she said. I am documenting everything. This is all on the record. I pulled out my phone and opened the video app. I am recording this, I said. Tracy froze. You cannot record me without my consent, she said. I said California is a two-party state for private conversations, but we are standing in a common area with other people present, so this is not private. She is right, Jenna said quietly. Tracy ignored her. If you do not put that phone away, she said, I am calling the police. I said, go ahead. I just talked to them this afternoon, and they gave me an incident number. You want it? Her face went red. She grabbed the handle of the file cart and yanked it back a step. You are going to regret this, she said. I am documenting everything, and when the board sees this footage, you are done. She turned and walked away, the cart rattling behind her. Jenna watched her go, then looked at me. That was intense, she said. Are you okay? I said I was fine and thanked her for speaking up. She nodded. I do not know what is going on, she said, but that did not feel right. I walked back to my house and uploaded the video to my laptop. I sent a copy to Rob and to Luis. Luis replied immediately. She is losing it. Rob called me 20 minutes later. That video is gold, he said. She just threatened you on camera, claimed she has evidence she has not produced, and admitted she is bypassing the management company. I am going to send this to the property manager and the board president tonight. This is over. I asked if he was sure. He said, not yet, but we are close. She is digging her own grave. Just stay out of her way and let her finish. Saturday morning, I woke up to an email from the board president, a guy named Dennis I had never spoken to. Subject: emergency board meeting scheduled. The body said, in light of recent events and concerns raised by multiple residents, the board will hold an emergency meeting on Monday at 7 p.m. to discuss the charity envelope investigation and related enforcement actions. All board members are required to attend. Residents may observe but not participate unless invited to speak. I forwarded it to Rob. He said, good. That means they are taking it seriously. I want you there, but do not say anything unless I tell you to. I will be on the phone with Dennis this afternoon to make sure they have all the facts. Sunday afternoon, Luis texted me, just ran into Frank at the grocery store. He said Tracy cornered him yesterday and told him he needed to change his story about seeing her at the mailbox cluster. He said no, and she got mad. He is willing to talk now. I called Frank and he sounded shaken. She came to my door, he said. She told me I was mistaken about what I saw, and if I kept spreading rumors, she would file a complaint against me for defamation. I told her I was just telling the truth, and she said, the truth is whatever the board decides it is. I asked if he would be willing to come to the meeting Monday. He said, I will think about it. I do not want trouble, but this is getting out of hand. Monday at 6:30, I drove to the clubhouse where the meeting was being held. It was a small building near the pool with a conference room that seated about 20 people. When I got there, the parking lot was already half full. I saw Tracy's silver SUV in the front row. I parked in the back and walked in. The conference room had a long table at the front where the board sat, and rows of folding chairs facing it. About 15 residents were already seated. Tracy was at the table, talking to Dennis. She had a clear plastic sleeve in her hand with a clipboard inside, and she kept gesturing at it while she talked. Dennis looked tired. I sat in the back row next to Luis. He leaned over and whispered, "This is going to be a disaster." At 7 p.m., Dennis called the meeting to order. He read a prepared statement about the purpose of the meeting and the rules for public comment. Then he turned to Tracy. "Tracy," he said, "you requested this meeting to present evidence in the charity envelope matter. The floor is yours." Tracy stood up and pulled a stack of papers from the file cart, which she had wheeled in and parked beside her chair. "Thank you, Dennis," she said. "I appreciate the board's willingness to address this urgent issue. As you all know, a sealed envelope containing approximately $400 in cash for the local food bank raffle was reported missing on Wednesday. After reviewing security footage, portal logs, and witness statements, I have identified the individual responsible." She pulled a sheet from the stack and held it up. "This is a portal audit log," she said. "It shows that the suspect accessed the portal on Tuesday evening and viewed the mailbox maintenance request section. This proves he had advanced knowledge of the envelope's location and timing." She pulled another sheet. "This is a witness statement from a board member who observed the suspect near the mailbox cluster on Tuesday afternoon." She pulled a third sheet. "And this is a timeline I prepared showing the suspect's movements and the gaps in his alibi." She laid the sheets on the table in a row. "Based on this evidence, I am recommending that the board authorize immediate enforcement action, including a lien on the suspect's property, suspension of common area privileges, and referral to the San Jose Police Department for criminal prosecution." Dennis looked at the sheets. "Tracy," he said, "can you clarify who the suspect is?" She pointed at me. "Him," she said. "The resident in Unit 47. He has refused to cooperate, he has provided misleading footage, and he has hired an attorney to intimidate the board. All of that is consistent with guilt." A murmur went through the room. Dennis held up a hand. "Okay," he said. "Let me ask a few questions. First, do you have the original envelope or any physical evidence that it was taken?" Tracy said, "No, but that is because he disposed of it." Dennis said, "Do you have footage of him taking it?" She said no, but the portal log shows intent. Dennis said, "What about the witness? Can they testify?" Tracy hesitated. "The witness prefers to remain anonymous," she said. Dennis frowned. "Tracy," he said, "we cannot take enforcement action based on an anonymous accusation. That is not how this works." Tracy's face went tight. "With all due respect, Dennis," she said, "I am the board secretary, and I have been investigating this for 4 days. I know what I am doing." Dennis said, "I am sure you do. But the board has to follow the governing documents, and the governing documents say we need actual evidence before we take action. Do you have anything else?" Tracy pulled a small flashlight from her pocket and pointed it at the doorbell camera footage playing on a laptop at the front of the room. "Look at this," she said. "The camera angle is deliberately positioned to avoid the mailbox cluster. That is obstruction." Dennis said, "Or it is just a badly placed camera." "I do not think that proves anything." Tracy slammed the flashlight on the table. "I am documenting everything," she said, "and if this board refuses to act, I will go to the district attorney myself." Dennis looked at the other board members. The treasurer, a woman named Pam, said, "I think we need to slow down and let the management company handle this." Tracy turned on her. "The management company is useless," she said. "They have been dragging their feet since day one." Pam said, "That is not true. I talked to Vanessa on Friday, and she said they are reviewing everything. She also said the police were called, and they found no basis for an investigation." Tracy said, "That is because the suspect lied to them." Pam said, "Or maybe there is no evidence." Dennis said, "Okay, that is enough." "Tracy, I am going to ask you to sit down. We are going to hear from the other side now." He looked at me. "Sir," he said, "do you want to respond?" I stood up. Luis handed me a folder. I walked to the front and set the folder on the table. "My name is on the deed," I said, "so you all know who I am. I am not going to relitigate everything Tracy just said, but I want to clarify a few things. 1. I was not at the mailbox cluster on Tuesday afternoon. I was in Fremont working a service call, and I have a timestamped work order and a statement from my coworker to prove it. 2. I accessed the portal on Tuesday evening to check on a sprinkler maintenance request I submitted last week, not to check on the envelope. 3. My doorbell camera does not point at the cluster because it is designed to monitor my own property, not common areas. I opened the folder and pulled out the work order. "Here is the work order," I said, and handed it to Dennis. He looked at it and passed it to Pam. I pulled out the incident report card the deputy gave me. "Here is the incident number from the San Jose Police Department," I said. They reviewed the allegations and found no basis for an investigation. I handed it to Dennis. Then I pulled out the cease and desist letter Rob sent. "And here is a letter from my attorney documenting the defamation, retaliation, and harassment I have experienced over the last 4 days. It is addressed to Tracy and the management company, and it gives the board 72 hours to retract the false accusations and restore my portal access." Dennis read the letter, and his face went pale. Tracy stood up. "That letter is a scare tactic," she said. "It does not change the facts." I said, "What facts?" "You have not produced a single piece of actual evidence. You have a portal log that proves nothing, a witness who will not go on the record, and a theory based on the fact that I live near the mailbox. That is not evidence. That is a witch hunt." Tracy grabbed the clipboard from the table. "I have this," she said, holding it up. "This is a second portal audit log I printed this morning. It shows a different set of access times than the one I showed you earlier." I looked at Dennis. "That does not make sense," I said. "If she has 2 different logs, one of them is wrong. Or she is lying." Tracy's face went red. "I am not lying," she said. "I printed both of them from the portal. Maybe the system glitched." I said, "Or maybe you edited one of them." Dennis said, "Tracy, let me see both logs." She handed them over. He laid them side by side and compared them. "These do not match," he said. "The first one shows an access time of 6:15 p.m. on Tuesday. The second one shows 6:45 p.m. Which one is correct?" Tracy grabbed the sheets back. "I do not know," she said. "It does not matter. The point is he was in the portal." I pulled out my phone. "Actually," I said, "I can tell you which one is correct." I logged into the portal and pulled up my account activity. I turned the phone toward Dennis. "This is the official log from my account," I said. "It shows I accessed the portal at 6:40 p.m. on Tuesday to check the maintenance request. That matches the second log, not the first. So either Tracy made a mistake, or she fabricated the first log to make me look guilty." Dennis took the phone and looked at it. Then he looked at Tracy. "Did you alter this document?" he asked. Tracy said, "No, I printed it exactly as it appeared." Dennis said, "Then why are there 2 versions?" Pam leaned over and looked at the sheets. "These are not even formatted the same," she said. "The first one has a different header." Tracy said, "That is because I printed one from the summary view and one from the detail view." Pam said, "The summary view does not show access times. Only the detail view does." "So where did the first one come from?" Tracy did not answer. Dennis said, "Tracy, I am going to ask you one more time. Did you create or alter any of these documents?" She said, "I am documenting everything. That is my job." Dennis said, "That is not an answer." A man in the front row stood up. He was older, maybe 60, and he had a phone in his hand. "Excuse me," he said. "My name is Greg, and I live in Unit 12. I have been recording this meeting, and I just want to say that I saw Tracy at the mailbox cluster on Tuesday morning. I was walking my dog, and she was standing there with a clipboard and a small flashlight, and she was opening one of the compartments. I did not think anything of it at the time, but now I am wondering what she was doing." Tracy spun toward him. "That is a lie," she said. "I was never at the cluster on Tuesday." Greg said, "I have no reason to lie. I saw you. You were wearing that same trench coat." Another woman in the second row raised her hand. "I saw her too," she said. "I was getting my mail on Tuesday afternoon and she was still there. She looked like she was checking something." Tracy said, "This is absurd. You are all ganging up on me because you do not want to admit there is a thief in the neighborhood." Dennis said, "Tracy, sit down. She did not move. He said it again. Louder. Sit down. She sat. Dennis looked at the room. Okay, he said. Here is what is going to happen. The board is going to table this matter pending a full review by the management company. We are going to request copies of all portal logs directly from the system administrator, not from Tracy. We are going to interview every witness who has come forward, including Greg and the woman in the second row. And we are going to restore portal access for the resident in Unit 47 immediately, because there is no evidence to support the restriction. If anyone has additional information, you can submit it to the management office in writing. This meeting is adjourned. Tracy stood up. You are making a mistake, she said. Dennis said, the mistake was letting this get this far. You are dismissed, Tracy. The room erupted. People started talking at once, some asking questions, some congratulating Greg for speaking up. Tracy grabbed the file cart and tried to push it toward the door, but one of the wheels caught on a chair leg and the whole thing tipped over. Papers spilled across the floor. She bent down and started grabbing them, her face bright red. I walked over and picked up one of the sheets. It was a blank violation notice form with no date or name filled in. I handed it to Dennis. She was going to fill these out on the spot, I said. He took it and shook his head. Tracy stood up, clutching a handful of papers. You have not heard the last of this, she said, and walked out. The door slammed behind her. Luis came up and clapped me on the shoulder. That was incredible, he said. I cannot believe she had 2 different logs. I said, I can. She has been making this up from the start. Dennis walked over. I owe you an apology, he said. This should never have gotten this far. I am going to recommend that the board review Tracy's admin access and possibly remove her from the secretary position. In the meantime, your portal access is restored as of now, and we will issue a formal retraction of the accusations by end of day tomorrow. I thanked him and asked what would happen to Tracy. He said, that is up to the full board, but based on what we saw tonight, I do not think she is going to last long. I walked out to the parking lot with Luis. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Vanessa at the management office. Just got word from Dennis. Your access is back, and we are drafting the retraction letter now. Also, we are terminating the vendor contract with Allied Metro because Tracy was using it to threaten residents without authorization. I showed the text to Luis. He grinned. She is done, he said. I said, not yet. I want to know what happened to the envelope. Luis said, you think she took it? I said, I know she did. She knew details she should not have known, and she panicked when people started asking questions. We just need proof. Tuesday morning, I called Rob and told him what happened at the meeting. He laughed. That is the best outcome we could have hoped for, he said. The board turned on her, witnesses came forward, and she imploded in public. You do not even need to sue. Just let the process play out. I asked if there was any way to prove she took the envelope. He said, probably not unless she confesses or someone finds it. But the good news is, you are in the clear, and she is facing consequences. That is a win. I thanked him and hung up. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the portal. My access was back, and there was a new post from Dennis in the main feed, retraction and apology. The text said, the board has completed a preliminary review of the charity envelope investigation and has determined that the accusations against the resident of Unit 47 were unfounded and based on incomplete information. We apologize for any harm caused, and we are taking steps to ensure this does not happen again. The investigation remains open, and we encourage anyone with information to contact the management office. At 10 a.m., Vanessa called me. I have some news, she said. We pulled the full portal audit log from the system administrator, and it shows that Tracy uploaded 2 complaint forms on the same day the envelope went missing. Both forms were uploaded from the same device, and both were filed under her account. One of them was about you, and the other was a maintenance request for the mailbox cluster claiming the lock was broken. I asked what that meant. She said it means she had access to the cluster. She filed a fake maintenance request so she could get the master key from the property manager, and then she used it to open the compartments. We checked with the food bank, and they confirmed they never received the envelope. We think Tracy took it and then tried to frame you to cover it up. I asked if they were going to report it to the police. Vanessa said we are discussing it with the board. In the meantime, we are requiring Tracy to communicate only in writing going forward, and we are removing her admin access to the portal. The board is also considering whether to remove her from the secretary position entirely. I thanked her and hung up. Then I texted Luis, they have proof. She used a fake maintenance request to get the key. He replied, no way. That is insane. What happens now? I said, we wait and see. Wednesday afternoon, Dennis called me. I wanted to give you an update, he said. The board met last night and we voted to remove Tracy from the secretary position effective immediately. We also voted to refer the matter to the San Jose Police Department based on the evidence Vanessa provided. The detective assigned to the case called me this morning and said they are going to interview Tracy and search her property if they can get a warrant. I do not know what will come of it, but I wanted you to know we are taking it seriously. I thanked him and asked if the board was going to do anything else. He said, we are also reviewing our vendor contracts and our enforcement policies to make sure this does not happen again. And we are going to issue a second public statement clarifying what happened and apologizing to you specifically. Thursday morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it and found a San Jose police detective standing there. She introduced herself as Detective Ramirez and asked if I had a few minutes to talk. I let her in and she sat down at the kitchen table. I understand you were falsely accused of stealing a charity envelope, she said. I am investigating the case and I wanted to get your side of the story. I gave her the rundown and showed her the evidence I had collected. The work order, the doorbell footage, the incident number, the portal logs, the cease and desist letter. She took notes and asked a few follow-up questions. Then she said, I want to show you something. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was a picture of a torn mailer envelope with a food bank logo on it. We executed a search warrant at Tracy Benson's residence this morning, she said. We found this in her garage, along with $380 in cash. She admitted she took the envelope because she needed the money for personal expenses, and she panicked when people started asking about it. She thought if she blamed you, no one would look at her. I stared at the photo. So she confessed, I said. Detective Ramirez nodded. She is being charged with theft and filing a false police report, she said. The district attorney is reviewing the case, and they will decide whether to add additional charges. In the meantime, I wanted to let you know that you are completely cleared, and I am going to include your evidence in my report to show that you were wrongly accused. I asked what would happen to the money. She said, it will be returned to the food bank once the case is closed. I thanked her, and she stood up to leave. You handled this really well, she said. A lot of people would have lost their temper or done something stupid, but you kept your cool and gathered evidence. That made my job a lot easier. I walked her to the door and watched her drive away. Friday afternoon, the board posted a final update, resolution of charity envelope investigation. The text said, the board is pleased to announce that the charity envelope investigation has been resolved. The envelope was recovered and the funds will be returned to the food bank. The individual responsible has been removed from the board and is facing criminal charges. We apologize to the resident of Unit 47 for the false accusations and the harm caused. We are implementing new policies to prevent this type of situation in the future, including stricter oversight of vendor contracts and a requirement that all enforcement actions be approved by the full board before being communicated to residents. Thank you for your patience during this difficult time. I forwarded the post to Rob. He replied, congratulations, you won. I texted Luis, it is over. He came over that evening with a six-pack, and we sat on my porch and watched the sunset. That was the craziest week of my life, I said. He laughed. I cannot believe she tried to frame you and then got caught because she kept two different versions of the same audit log. I said, she got caught because she could not keep her story straight. She lied so many times, she forgot what she said to who. Luis raised his beer. To justice, he said. I clinked bottles with him. To evidence, I said. A month later, I ran into Vanessa at the grocery store. She smiled when she saw me. How are you doing? She asked. I said I was fine and asked how things were at the management office. She said, much quieter now that Tracy is gone. The new board secretary is a lot more reasonable. I asked if she had heard anything about the criminal case. She said, I heard she pled guilty to theft and got probation and community service. She also has to pay restitution to the food bank. I nodded. Good, I said. Vanessa said, I am really sorry you had to go through all that. It should not have happened. I said, it is okay. I learned a lot about HOA politics. She laughed. Well, if you ever want to run for the board, let me know. We could use someone who actually follows the rules. I walked out to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a minute, thinking about everything that had happened. Tracy had stolen a charity envelope, framed me for it, and then spent 4 days doubling down on the lie until she got caught on camera, confronted by witnesses, and buried by the evidence she tried to fabricate. The HOA terminated the vendor contract she abused, the board removed her from office, and the police charged her with theft and filing a false report. And all because a portal export showed the complaint forms were uploaded from one device. I started the engine and drove home. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a package on my porch. I walked up and checked the label. It was addressed to me. I picked it up, unlocked the door, and carried it inside. No drama, no accusations, just a normal delivery. Thanks for watching, and I am glad you stuck around.